Hi, this is Chris Cisnowski from B&W Control Systems Integration. This short video is going to cover a review, our internal review of the iPhone 4 on Verizon versus the HTC Thunderbolt on Verizon's network. We'll talk a little bit about the physical features, about the capabilities of the phone, some of the pluses and the minuses of both of them. So right off, starting out just by a physical review, you can see here if you put the phone side by side, the HTC Thunderbolt is both wider and taller than the iPhone. So depending on what your preferences are, that may be good or bad. You know, the Verizon iPhone here feels pretty good in your hand. It's a good size. You can hold it. It's a little bit more squared off around the corners and the edges. You can see the back of the phone is pretty flat, lays flat like that. The HTC Thunderbolt here is definitely a bigger phone. It's a little bit heavier too. You can see physically the phone has got a little bit of a rounded edge on the back. I felt that while I was using it, this phone, the Thunderbolt, felt a little bit better to hold than the iPhone did. I actually found that the iPhone's at top edge actually hit the cartilage of my ear when I actually used it without a Bluetooth headset. The Verizon phone, being physically larger, didn't quite fit as well like in a shirt pocket or a pocket of a pants. I think the iPhone is being a little bit smaller, worked that way a little bit better. If you flip the phones over on the back, you can note right away a couple of different things that are different about it. The HTC Thunderbolt has a 2 LED flash on the back that provides a little bit more brightness. The camera on this is an 8 megapixels versus less than 8. I think it's either 3 or 5. Both took very good pictures. The iPhone actually had the capability of taking multiple photos at different exposures and composing them into a single image, which is a pretty neat feature for and depending on what type of photo you want to take. But in terms of raw megapixels, the HTC Thunderbolt definitely takes it. You can see at the backs of both the phones. The other big thing that's a difference here is the HTC Thunderbolt has this kickstand. I've felt kickstands on some other phones, including some of the other HTC phones, and this by far is a significant improvement. It's a metal kickstand. It's got a little bit better feel as it opens and closes. You can use it to use the phone here in a widescreen mode. It worked a lot better than previous kickstands. Is very solid when it stands up. You can also tip the kickstand up like this and let it stand up by itself from the top. So physically, again, Verizon's HTC is a little bit bigger, which may be good or bad. Both cameras do have front-mounted cameras. Both phones have front-mounted cameras on them. The HTC's, again, the resolution is a little bit higher than on the iPhones. Both of them do take high-definition video out of the cameras in the back, though. Apps. Obviously, Verizon's iPhone is an iPhone, so it works with the iTunes Store. Big downside that I saw is that I actually have to use the iTunes Store on my computer to set up the phone. So if this is a business class phone, the biggest downside I think for some IT departments is that they have to download, install iTunes in order to get the phone to work activated on the network. So other quick physical things, the iPhone uses a proprietary connector on the bottom. This on a plus side, this happens to be the same connector that previous iPods have used, as well as the iPad that I have, and so they use the same cable, so at least if you're an Apple person, you don't have to have 3 different cables for different devices. The HTC on the side, you can see that's a micro USB port. It does charge with other micro USB cables. The Thunderbolt, the volume button is on the right, and on the iPhone, the volume buttons as well as the silence button are on the left of the phone. Last thing physically is that the iPhone, of course, has the home button on the bottom of the screen. It's the only hardware button on the front of the phone. Most of the other buttons you can see are soft buttons that appear on the touch screen. So that will bring the phone back to its home screen. On the HTC Thunderbolt, they are also feedback buttons, but they're kind of integrated into the bezel itself. So no matter what screen you're on, you can get access to a menu button, the back button, a search button, as well as the home button on the phone. And all of these buttons can do different things. They can be assignable, etc. So a little bit more about the phones themselves. You know, the first impression of the HTC Android phone was that it's a good phone. It seemed to be pretty solid in terms of operations. I never had it really lock up or fail on me. It comes with a 32 gig micro SD card, which is very good. The phone calls were quick, easy, and reliable. The voice quality on it was pretty good. Didn't have any problems with making phone calls. One of the downsides on the HTC Thunderbolt here is you can see all the apps that are installed on this. Now, some of these apps came with the phone. Some of the apps were downloaded, but there are a lot of apps like Rock Band, and there's a golf demo game, and there's some other Blockbuster. These apps cannot be removed. They are kind of programmed into the phone's ROM chip so that they can't be uninstalled. That was kind of annoying. A lot of these applications I'll never even use more than once. The iPhone was a little bit cleaner from an app standpoint, came with a couple of good apps. Certainly the Notes, YouTube, texting and email, calendaring, photos, the camera, the Maps application. And then it was also capable of downloading a whole bunch of other apps, such as LinkedIn and Twitter apps. And I'm a musician, so I downloaded some tuning applications and metronomes. The apps on both the Android market and the iTunes 4 store I found to be ample. I mean, again, sometimes you get what you pay for, but both of them were pretty good. Let's talk about battery life a little bit. I had both phones for about 2 or 3 weeks, one at a time. Hands down, the iPhone beats the HTC Thunderbolt in terms of battery life. We'll get into this a little bit later, but the big difference between these phones from a network perspective is the HTC Thunderbolt is Verizon's first 4G phone, so which means it uses the LTE technology instead of the EVDO Rev 2 technology, which is what the iPhone 4 is based on. So again, we'll talk about that in a little bit. But I found that when I was using the phone in a 4G territory, the battery life certainly decreases a lot faster. At one point I actually plugged the phone into the wall and was using the 4G with the Wi-Fi hotspot on this, which is great. This mobile hotspot feature allows you to use the LTE network and then set it up as a Wi-Fi hotspot for up to 10 users, I think. I had successfully put 4 or 5 of us on here, but boy, even when it was plugged into the wall, it actually drained the battery while it was plugged into the wall. So unbelievable the amount of battery that this is capable of draining. Hopefully Verizon fixes that with a firmware at some point, because I would almost say the battery life in 4G when you're actively using it is unacceptable. The iPhone I actually charged on a Friday, used it over the course of the weekend, did some incidental web surfing, answered some emails, took some pictures and that, and did not charge the phone until Monday late morning, and it still had about 30 or 40% left. Granted, I used the phone for less than an hour of talk time, but battery life, hands down, the iPhone takes the prize there. In terms of business use, we do have a Microsoft Exchange server at work. Both phones support the Active Sync capabilities. You are unable to synchronize your tasks on the Android phone, and actually I don't really use tasks, so I didn't use it either on the iPhone. I found that when I was setting up the iPhone to sync with my corporate network originally through iTunes, there was some confusion as to setting up contacts, but both phones do have access to the global address list in Exchange, which if you're an Exchange business user, you probably know what that is. It essentially allows you to look up contacts at your work on your phone, even though you don't have them as a contact on the phone itself.